Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another Emerald City Hockey post-game live. Unfortunately, it's after another Kraken loss. RJ, they're kind of starting to pile up. I guess the one thing we could say is at least this road trip's over.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's the good side of things, right? The road trip's over. They get to come back home, albeit still with plenty of issues to work out. And it's the same things that we're seeing over and over again. If you've made it for one of these post-game lives throughout the road trip, I guarantee you've heard some of the things we're going to talk about tonight. And honestly, I'm just kind of running out of things to say, given it's the same issues just keep coming up.
I think a lot of us are in that same boat, and we're going to go through that over the course of the next hour or so. I will say this, look, we're going to be real during this post game live. There's going to have to be some tough conversations. There might be some stuff that we'll talk about that might be a little bit more positive than maybe some people want on the flip side. But just know, everybody, we always strive just to kind of, call it as it is and go through that stuff and go through it all with everybody. But I understand if there's a lot of people that are frustrated after this loss, RJ, frustrated by this road trip. And I don't know about you. When I'm frustrated, I like to try to channel that into something. And so that's why I thought this picture from Flat Stick Pub, our wonderful sponsor, to kick things off was kind of perfect, because this is the records, RJ, at the South Lake Union location. You got the mini golf record there. It's 20, and then the employee record of 22. And then they also have the duffel board record. So if anybody's feeling frustrated after this game, maybe you head out to a Flat Stick Pub location, you take a look at their record board, and you try to channel some of that frustration that you're feeling watching some Kraken hockey into breaking some records. I got, that's what I got.
Oh yeah, go for the top spot. No, I think the people who can kind of channel that frustration the best are the ones, especially in the athletic world, the ones who do the best. So go for it if you're that kind of person.
Yeah, exactly. Find maybe there's another table also going for the record, and you can stare them down like Shane Wright did the Canadiens at the draft, RJ. Allegedly.
He says he didn't do it. I as the reporter, I've got to, it's just that he didn't do it if that's what he says.
That's what he could say. All right, but a big shout out to Flatstick for sponsoring these as always. Super chat here to kick us off with Light. I stand why what I said last game. Is there a follow-up one where, let's see in here.
That if we lost tonight, Hack had to go.
Yeah, I mean, look, RJ, for the first time, you and I texted during a game about this, about the coaching situation. And what I had texted you was, I still think, the road trip's over. You've got a nice long homestand now. But I said, if things don't go well during that homestand, I don't think Hackstall's coaching by Christmas, just because it's the same issues again and again, RJ.
Yeah, and this is the first time I've really entertained the idea that actually might be a possibility after this game. I think, and I responded to you, that I think Hackstall needs at least 2 wins on the homestand. It's a long homestand, 6-game homestand.
Yeah.
I think he's got a long leash, but if you don't get 2 wins out of that, I don't see how he makes it to Christmas. They have to do something to turn things around.
Right. And now here's the flip side of things. I really don't think this is all Hackstall's fault. Like, I'll go down with that boat if I have to, but like, I really truly think a lot of the issues that the Kraken are dealing with right now, Hackstall's done as much as he can do, RJ. Like, that's another thing you and I talked about, right? He's had the practices where he's tried to talk to them. He's had the practices where he's yelled at them. He's shuffled the lines a million times. They've changed what they're trying to do on special teams. He's done all of the things that a coach can do. At some point, it's on the players to just not play sloppy, to not turn over the puck in their own zone, to score if they're being paid a lot of money to score, and to have the effort, right? Like, that is something that players control. And right now, that's been the biggest problem this season with the Kraken. I just don't know how much of this is really on Hackstall, even if he's the person that might have to be the fall guy for it.
Yeah, and I wouldn't go as far as you do, but I think we're generally on the same page with this, that the majority of it lies on the players at this point. Dave Hackstall has pushed about 90% of the buttons, I think, that an NHL head coach can push when a team is struggling. He hasn't done the full break glass in case of emergency things, like maybe benching a star player, maybe just, taking, I don't know, like a Jordan Eberle or something, just sitting him for a game.
I was going to say, who do you single out? It's like a group effort of not playing.
That's right. There's nobody obvious there. Like, it's everybody. And so then, making one guy the fall guy, especially a veteran player like that, it's tough to do, or maybe making a change on defense. But I don't know that he has reason to believe that inserting Megna into this situation is going to fix anything. I
Yeah.
would I don't think it is. So he's really limited as far as what else he can do. And then I guess whatever message you want to give the team behind the scenes, yell at the guys, whatever. But it seems like he's already kind of done that. I mean, it's going to be a really interesting practice on Wednesday when they come back. Like, what does that practice even look like? I mean, do you bag skate the guys? But how does that help you not do defensive zone turnovers? I don't know.
Exactly. That's where I'm at, and that's where it's just kind of one of those. He's got his work cut out for him. Like I don't know. I wish I had answers, and I just don't. Another super chat here from Gary. Thank you for being here after each game, everyone. I really appreciate all the comments and ECH coverage on tough losses like tonight. The little cheers emoji there. I always appreciate you, Gary, and everybody else for joining us for these. I mean, it really is turn into a therapy session. We're able to work through everything together. Trust me, it helps us just as much as it helps everybody in the comment section, right, RJ?
Yep, absolutely. And there was a tweet I saw earlier today. I think it was from like 2019 or something. It's from an account Acting the Foolaman, which is some funny tweets on Twitter. But it's mostly was meant about the Leafs. But it's like, why does everyone think that being a sports fan is about like your team's going to win and you're going to have a fun time? No, it's about being sad together in a group.
It is. It is. I mean, that's the community aspect of sports. You're there together to celebrate the wins. You're there to pick each other up after the losses. You don't always want to be picking each other up after losses for too long, but that is the community aspect and part of what makes sports great. So that's a good super chat there, Gary. Thank you very much. And then a super chat here from Schultz. 3 sloppy turnover gifted goals. Grew hung out to dry. Need to make changes. How can you keep the same D pairs and only shuffle forwards? Hashtag give Megna a go. I mean, there you go, RJ, right there. Somebody with the super chat calling for Megna to be inserted in the lineup. I do think we are at that point. That is one of the few things that Hackstall has not done. He shuffled the forward lines a ton, has not looked at those D pairs. If you were to look at the D pairs, RJ, what would you do? Would it be bringing in Megna, or would you just shuffle the existing 6 guys around?
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's a good question, right? I'm
Yeah,
starting to think like Dunn Larson. I feel like you probably still want to keep that together. Maybe you do shuffle that. Actually, you know what?
I would
At this
shuffle that.
point, you know what? I think you do want to shuffle that. And then I would take Dumoulin out and put Megna in just to see what Megna has, what he can offer you. Give him a third pairing role. Don't play him too much in that first game. Just let him kind of ease in. But I guess, I mean, do you have D pairs in mind, Dylan?
Well, I was just thinking about that, but I think Vince Dunn's been struggling. I mean, he's been good offensively. He's good on the power play, but I would still switch him around. If I'm bringing in Megna for somebody, I know Dumoulin's kind of back on a down dip from where he was. He started the season, but then he was getting better. Will Borgen is playing really rough right now. Talk about adventures going on, wandering around. I don't know where he was on this first goal tonight, RJ. I would consider bringing in Megna for Will Borgen personally. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, the reason I went with Dumoulin is because the left side, right side thing. But
I
Megna,
know.
you can have
You
somebody
can
go
do
over and
both.
play the right.
Yes.
Like it's possible. You can do it, but I don't know.
It's a tough one, but I do think that I would shuffle things around. Look, what could it break at this point?
Yeah.
Right? Like it's not going to make things worse realistically. But yes, it's tough because it was another strong performance from Gerbauer, RJ. Just too many times where the Canadians just had numbers in front. They had open opportunities. They were just able to get to all the prime scoring areas and pick them apart.
Right. I mean, it should have been at least 3-0 after the first period. Credit to Philip Grubauer for keeping the Kraken in the game. Even late, too, he made some big saves. I mean, this was certainly not on him. Anyone who watched the first period would know that. Yeah, I feel bad for him at this point. Like the D just can't get it together. And I'm seeing people in chat here toward the bottom talking about, what about Riker Evans? People talking about Evans, Cale Fleury, maybe bringing someone up from Coachella Valley. What do you think about that idea, Dylan?
Well, it's the same thing like with Shane Wright. Do you want to insert a young player into this situation and environment right now? Right? Like I don't know that that's the best thing for a Riker Evans, just like I don't know that's the best thing for a Shane Wright. Now, if we're talking a month from now, right? Or when the calendar changes and we're in 2024 and the Kraken, if they were bad on the homestand, whether or not Hackstall's still coach, but the season looks kind of lost at that point, then maybe you can start transitioning and you can make it about getting young players NHL experience, getting them ready so that they can hit the ground running next year. But right now, I mean, I talked about this on the last Prospect Live chat. Riker Evans is still struggling with picking up some defensive coverage things. I don't think he is really the answer on the back end to the defensive lapses that the Kraken are dealing with right now. I think you're going to see him, make a lot of rookie mistakes and a lot of the similar mistakes that the guys are already making. Would he help out the power play a little bit? Yeah, he would, but I don't know that it would be enough to offset stuff on the back end or potentially wrecking his confidence just because he might be added to a team that right now is loosely in a death spiral.
Yeah, and I think we're seeing a lot of agreement in chat here. Shoeshine, yeah, Evans takes 10,000 penalties a game. Still, he's not ready. Nicole B, Bert Krem all kind of agreeing. There's no big solution in Coachella Valley for this.
Yeah,
Although Jenna likes the idea of bringing up Fleury.
You could bring up Cale Fleury. I mean, he has NHL experience. He's been around. He would be an option. I don't know. What do you think about that?
I mean, he does, play on the right side too. So I guess there's that if you want to take out a Will Borgen. But I mean, he's certainly not going to solve everything with this team. The problems are so much deeper than that.
They are. Sergey here with the super chat. Can we just call up the whole Coachella team and send those Kraken boys down to work on stuff? That would be cool, unrealistic. Yeah, it's probably not going to happen. That would be a heck of a waivers day, though, RJ. Let me tell you, NHL GMs would be very much confused trying to figure out what they could do. But yeah, it's a tough one right now because it does feel like there are guys on this roster right now, RJ, where working at an AHL level would be really good for them. Or, I mean, I don't know. Like, they're good players. Like, on paper, these are good players that are struggling. It's just they're all struggling together and they're not seeming to find a way to work themselves out of it. And that's just so unusual.
Yeah, I mean, can we use the whole conditioning loan loophole to just kind of rotate them one by one down, have Dan and Jess work with them for a week and then send them back up? I don't know. Could we do that? I don't think any team's really done that before.
Even if you did, like, let's say you did find a way to do that, and the league and everybody wasn't totally on you, it would take too long, right? Like, by the time you cycled through like 6 guys, you're talking 6 weeks from now. It might not matter. That's the problem. But yeah, it's a tough situation they're in right now. Nicole, echoing your sentiments from the beginning, I feel like there's nothing new to talk about. How many times can we go over the same thing? I guess the one benefit of this game, RJ, compared to some of the other games on this road trip, or at least with the exception of that Blackhawks game and maybe the Toronto game, is that this team really did turn it around at about the halfway point, right? They played the second half of that second period very strong. They came out and they played the third period strong, right? They were able to get 2 goals back, make it a 1-goal hockey game late there. I mean, that is a positive. They did not quit. They did not give up. The effort was there late in the game. It just wasn't quite enough to make up for some of the lapses they had earlier.
Right. And I think that is worth talking about. About the halfway mark of the second period, the Kraken did kind of wake up. And if you look at the McCann goal, maybe 4 minutes or so before that, like that whole time, they were just cycling in the offensive zone, playing dominant hockey, just puck possession, getting looks at the net. And so you could feel that goal coming for them to get back into the game. And, they are able to get another one in the third period to kind of claw their way back. But at the end of the day, it's just too little too late. And you have to know that too. The Kraken put themselves down 3-0, and they have never come back from a 3-goal deficit to win a hockey game. Never in franchise history. So you can't count on there being a franchise first comeback, in a game where you just decide to wake up late. So against Montreal, against some of these teams, because look, the Habs aren't a great team. They're really not. Sometimes you can get away with a 30-minute effort and still win a game, but you cannot count on it. Certainly not in the situation the Kraken are in right now.
No, and there's positives, right? You think about that McCann goal at the beginning, and what is it that about that play that was able to finally work for the Kraken, and you were able to get a McCann with that much time and space where he's able to just totally pick apart a goaltender. And I go back to player movement. Right? The amount of player movement on that play, you just got to the point where the Montreal Canadiens had no idea what was going on anymore, right? You look at their defense, they just clump up in the slot because they don't know what to do. Their coverage assignments are all blown because they've been trying to track and hand off guys, and it's just been a total cluster F for them that entire sequence, which was all amazing work from the Kraken. This is something I talked about a lot back in season 1. What I wish we would see from them on the power play was, instead of puck movement, go with player movement, because it's really hard for teams to constantly be passing off defensive coverages. At some point, somebody will get open and have time and space. And if you're the Kraken and you have a lot of these really skilled players, you have a bunch of 20, 25 plus goal scorers on this team, a bunch of forwards you're paying $5 million to. If you can get them the time and space where they're able to choose their shot like McCann was there, you can score goals. That is a recipe for success. I would love to see the Kraken maybe do that, adjust what their cycle game is to, instead of cycling the puck, cycle the players who have the puck around. Try to really force the defense to play some elite defense where they can pass off coverage or play man-to-man and really make sure everybody's sticking with each other and they're not getting lost, which is really difficult to do even at the NHL level. I would love to see the Kraken do that more. Otherwise, this was the first game in a while, RJ, really since the Sharks game, that if you go on Money Puck and you look at their shot chart, there's a bunch of big bubbles in and around the crease where they were getting in low. They were getting high percentage, high danger chances. I'm very happy to see that again for the Kraken.
Yeah, and you mentioned the power play too. And I thought by the last power play, they really did kind of figure it out with the player movement. I thought that was really important. It ended up resulting in the Dunn goal, but you rewind about a minute before that. And I love the play where they were having Jared McCann kind of move up top instead of like go down low into his shooting spot. He was moving up top toward the blue line, and then Jordan Eberle was kind of kicking out to the side, and they'd move the puck down low to Eberle and kind of create this 2-on-1 look down low. They weren't able to connect on the pass across. Eberle had a shot that didn't work out, but I like the varied looks, and Eberle had a ton of time and space. What I'd want to see, though, is like the third forward just kind of come in, try and jump into the high slot, give Eberle 2 options instead of 1. Harder to take away, but the player movement was opening things up. You just got to have that last piece there.
Exactly. But that's something they can work on. Like, that is something you can practice, you can work on in morning skates, you can talk about in team meetings. That is a direction for them to go that they haven't explored yet. And I guess if you are Hackstall, that's something to look at. Ryan, I want to feel good about battling back, but I just can't when you lose your 5th straight, most of these games against beatable teams. I look at the homestand, RJ, and I see some beatable teams on there as well. And even some of the better teams, you look at the LA Kings, right? But the Kraken historically have been pretty good against the Kings. So I think that that's one where this homestand is really going to decide a lot of how the season's going to go. I would argue it will decide how the season goes. If they have a good homestand, the season, I think, the sky's the limit from there as far as them being able to potentially get to the playoffs and stuff. But if it's a rough homestand, I think that's where everything's going to come down to.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. And so a mix of some good opponents, some not so good opponents. It's really going to be a little bit of everything for them on that homestand. It's all just going to depend on how the Kraken play.
Yep. Let's see. B, bright side, Groovy looked great. Dark side, pretty much literally everything else. There was the comeback there. Let's see. Christian, I said in the beginning of the game, I was going to say, I think we suck. Then they get better, but not enough. Seems to just be more of the same. It is a weird place the Kraken are stuck in, RJ, where none of us can really just say and kind of like, okay, this is kind of it, right? Because they do have these stretches where they play really well, or they bring out a different look, or you see how skilled they can be. And I think that's part of it for everybody, is just that they're giving us just enough that they're keeping us right in that place where we can have our hopes dashed on a nightly basis.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think we're at really the point where we can say that this is a bad team. They're just playing really bad, and they need to figure out some things. That makes it all the more frustrating. I feel like we've said that a few games in a row now, but that's where we're at.
Yeah. Bert Krem, I know we talked about the idea of maybe benching somebody. Bert Krem saying Maddie should be benched for multiple turnovers. Maddie has been playing. This might be the worst stretch of NHL hockey Maddie's been playing lately.
I'd agree with that.
Say. Yeah.
And especially tonight. This is probably, top 3 or 4 like worst game I've seen from him in his short NHL career. The turnovers were just awful, especially in the first period. And you really can point to him after this one. And I know it's tough. I know he's a young player still trying, kind of taking his lumps in the NHL, but this was just a flat out rough game. And I wouldn't want to bench him just because knowing that what should do to his confidence. Also because it's a group effort. Like if everybody else was firing on all cylinders and he's just letting the team down with turnovers, then maybe you can think about it. But to single him out as the guy after that, I think it's got to lay on some of the veterans first.
I agree with that. Maddie, I'm sad. All I want for Christmas is a Kraken win and maybe a Winter Classic jersey. I think there's gonna be lots of
On
people
everyone's
getting
list,
those.
feels like.
Yeah, I would say so. Jessica, seriously, poor Gru. Nicole, I really think they need to start scratching players just to wake him up. Maybe not forwards right now because we're running low, but put Magna in for a game. So echoing what we talked about earlier on there. The base six, that's a name I haven't said on here lately. Good to see you again. Effort is there. Execution is not. Too many mistakes against bad teams. I mean, I would argue some of the defensive problems are effort issues, like just whether it's net front focus. RJ, we saw that again with the Dumoulin play with Tanner Pearson was able just to kind of win that battle net front, or with some of the turnovers from Maddie. I would, some of that is effort stuff.
I know it's hard kind of splitting hairs there with like effort or focus. Cause like you look at the
Yeah.
Dumoulin play, like that's focus. I honestly don't believe he's too lazy to go take away his man's stick there. He's just not thinking about it. It's just, he doesn't have the presence of mind to be like, oh yeah, I need to tie this guy up, take away his stick. If that thought crosses his mind, he does it and that goal doesn't happen.
That one was such an interesting one because, you know, the first goal, it's like, okay, where is everybody? It's a turnover for one, and then it's a where is Will Borgen? He should kind of have been there. And then you look at the power play goal for Sean Monahan, and it was just like a, you know, again, why are you letting teams pass there of all places on the power play? Like, you really need to cover those lanes. But that one, that Tanner Pearson goal, that second goal for Montreal, RJ, was so interesting because that's the first goal in a while where the Kraken have had two defensemen at home and they're both engaged with the players in front of Grubauer. And they just, even still, it just wasn't enough.
They were exactly where they needed to be, but you just have to take that stick off the ice. It's the final piece of defending in that kind of situation.
It is. No, you're 1,000% right. It was just kind of like one of those, we got what we were hoping for, and then it just wasn't enough. And you're just like, come on. Light with another super chat here. Really appreciate it. I truly hope that Ron, who I don't think is to blame for this, is making calls for Wenny and is going to bring up Shane. He has earned his spot here. Again, I think they're going to wait. I think the right thing to do would be to wait here and let the homestand play out maybe the rest of this month, and then you reevaluate things post Winter Classic.
Yeah, I think so too. Give it the homestand, and then if that doesn't go well, then you know all options can be on the table.
Definitely. Evan, hello from Montreal. Wish tonight went better. Yeah, I know. I don't know if you were at the game, Evan, but we had several people who were on this road trip following the team, RJ. They've been emailing us, or people on Twitter letting us know, in the Discord letting us know. And sorry, everybody. I hope you had fun on the road trip, seeing all the sights. Montreal looked beautiful. All the stuff that they had, all the shots Root Sports was saying, the snow, it all looked gorgeous. I hope you're able to get lots of pictures and enjoy that stuff, because unfortunately the games weren't probably the highlight.
Yeah, hope you had some good food in Montreal there. I know they've got a lot of it there. Jeff Baker always tells me how much good food they have in Montreal. So hope you got to partake in that.
He would be the first person to tell us. Joyful. Anyone notice a different vibe from the coaching staff today? I'm wondering if words were exchanged between Ron Francis and Hackstall, and if not, what would it take for those conversations to take place? I get the sense, RJ, that those two talk a lot about things. I feel like there's always kind of an open dialogue between the two. I don't know that it would ever be a situation where it's like Ron Francis as the boss coming down on Hackstall about something. I feel like it's something where they really work together a lot to figure things out.
Yeah, that's absolutely the sense I get from kind of being around things a little bit more too, is there's a lot of communication, a lot of dialogue between those two. It wouldn't be a situation where all of a sudden Ron comes down and gives them a talking to, because like they probably talked yesterday, you know?
Yeah. Especially on these road trips where everybody's traveling, you're all together for all of that and everything. It really lends itself to having those conversations. Let's see. I really don't like the coach carousel ideas, but it's hard to see any systems or meaningful positive impact Hack is having on this team right now. Again, I would say I don't know that any coach would at the moment, just given the way some of the stuff's going. Let's see. B, I want to say if we pulled the Blue Jackets and waved Maddie for a bit like they did Johnson, but do we even have the center depth to cover that other than Wright? No, I don't know that we could do that.
Yeah, no, I think is he still waivers exempt?
Maddie?
Yeah.
He's
played too many games, right?
I was just gonna say, I mean, he's on his ELC still, but it's possible that the stuff from that first year is what
Yeah,
would do it.
he is waivers exempt, so
Okay, so
you
you
could
could.
send him down to Coachella Valley, and just
Which,
have him. Could you imagine Matty at Coachella, but just lighting it up like 4 or 5 points a night? I feel like.
yeah, but you know what? Then it might only take a week or so, 3 or 4 games, and he might have his mojo back. I don't know. Um, let's see, Hockey Fork. I'm not frustrated, kind of expected it. Kraken games are on in the background while I do dishes at this point. I saw some of that stuff down in the Discord as well tonight. I think, again, this one last game of the road trip, I get that. I think we can kind of all do a reset, and hopefully the team does too for the homestand. That's where I'm at anyway.
Yeah, no,
Um,
I think it's about right.
yeah,
I'm still thinking about Maddie and Shane playing together in Coachella Valley for just a
I,
couple games and how nuts that would be.
it would be insane. Vaharen, do you still have a positive opinion of Jay Leach? Now, this is interesting. We haven't talked about Jay Leach at all this year, really, RJ.
That's a good
Um,
question.
it's a really good question. This is going to be something that maybe is better left for tomorrow when we record the deep dive. But for right now, I mean, look, he did great work with the PK last year. He's done a lot of great work with the defensemen. Looks like, yeah, you might need to go back to the drawing board right now, though.
Yeah, I mean the results just they kind of speak for themselves at this point this season. I don't think you see the defenseman get any better. Maybe is this like a head coach? You only usually see it with head coaches, but like is the message wearing off? You don't usually talk about that for assistant coaches or positional coaches, but maybe that's something to think about. And I know that a lot of defensemen too mentioned that he was a really good developer and kind of developing the young guys. And there's really not a whole lot of that to be done on this blue line. With these 6 guys, it kind of is what it is. And, not, they don't really have many young guys anymore. I guess he's still working with Megna all the time after practice, but there's not much you can do there. I don't know.
It's true. I mean, as you add in veterans like a Justin Schultz, a Brian Dumoulin, I mean, they don't need to be developed as much, right? Like that's where your job as a coach kind of shifts as far as what you're doing from development to, working with them, studying film with them, working on those other things, being more helping them get ready for individual matchups rather than helping them with the larger picture stuff. It's entirely possible that his strengths lie with the bigger picture concepts and developing. That wouldn't surprise me at all. That's still a very valuable skill set for a coach. It's just, yeah, maybe that's not lining up right now with what the Kraken need.
Yeah, now that I think of it too, the times where the players have spoken the most highly of him, where I've really heard his praises from players, it was the Fleury brothers, it was Riker Evans, it was Ty Nelson, like after Dev Camp. Those are younger guys that he's working with.
Exactly. So maybe there is something there to be explored a little bit. Jules with the super chat here, really appreciate it. Do we know if the Kraken are still playing Mario Kart together? Seems their chemistry has changed with each other since the Geek Squad left. RJ, is it just that simple? They just need somebody in there to get them playing more video games.
It might be that simple. I will say I haven't heard anybody like casually talk about Mario Kart in the room this year. Whereas last year I'd hear the
That
guys
was
kind
all
of
they talked about.
it was mostly between like Maddie and Geeky and then sometimes Borgen involved and them kind of debating about their Mario Kart skills and the last tournament or whatever. But I don't hear that anymore this year. They may still be playing Mario Kart with each other, but I do wonder if they're playing it less.
Yes, and you know what? If focus is the problem, I mean, video games are good for that. Like that's one of the things video games can really help you out with, especially a video game like Mario Kart, RJ. You got to be dialed in and focused through that. Like you can't kind of half-ass it. Not gonna work. Not gonna go out
Yep.
well for you. We all know that. Coop here with the super chat. Appreciate it. I don't think Matty needs benching or any punishment. I think all of the guys on the team knows he's messing up. He cares.
Yeah.
What?
Oh, nothing. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, okay.
Of all the guys on the team, he
Yes,
knows he's
of all the
messing.
guys.
Yeah,
Yeah, he knows he's
yeah.
messing up. He cares a bunch of guys for effort issues, not mistakes while trying his hardest, in my opinion. Look, I agree with that. We've talked about his leadership capabilities, RJ. I mean, it's one of those things where hockey players, especially by the time you get to the NHL, you know these things.
Yeah.
And these are professional athletes. They tend to be the toughest critics of themselves.
Absolutely. And that's certainly the case for Matty Beniers. And it's a sense you get from being around, after practices and whatnot, especially if something's not going well, the team's not doing well. Matty cares a whole lot. And often he's his own toughest critic. And so you're right. He absolutely knows. And I don't think benching him would tell him anything that he doesn't know about his own game right now. Yeah, letting him tear it up in Coachella Valley, though.
It's an option. Before I do, I'm going to do a jump in the comments here to go down lower because everybody's really been active in there. But before I do, just kind of going back to the earlier conversations, Hockey Fork, that's the definition of losing the room. And Shoeshine Hackstall having done everything he can do, and they're still not producing is precisely why it's time for him to go. He can't get through to them. Time for a change. Those are the situations where you do start to see changes, RJ. And it does, I mean, as we're talking about it, that is, I guess, the conclusion to draw.
Yeah, and I mean,
Unfortunately.
you talked about it with me a little bit on Red Glare, in regards to the Minnesota situation, talking about, when guys just feel like the message isn't getting across, or for one reason or
Yep.
another, you know, players that are maybe better on paper than what the results are will sometimes play that way if you just can't reach them, or they're kind of tired of message from a certain person. So it's certainly possible.
Yep. Storm K here. Only valid critique, in my opinion, of Hackstall is defensive play in all 3 seasons, which has not been great. Outscored some defensive problems last year. Is that the players, coaching, or both? I mean, we've touched on it a little bit. I guess that is one of the things to talk about. And look, this is also a product of being an expansion team, right? Defense is the hardest thing to try to cobble together for an expansion team, even in the new world expansion draft format, right? Because you're essentially getting a bunch of fourth defensemen off of a team, given how teams could protect their top, group of guys. And so while I don't, I think there's good defensemen on this Kraken roster, and they've been able to add through free agency and stuff. It is one of those things where when we do look at them on paper, RJ, defense, they lack the guy. We've talked about that. You have Vince Dunn, but he's more of an offensively minded guy. I do think this is just one of those things where that was going to be the thing they were always going to struggle with, just because of how they came to be.
Yeah, I mean, they don't really have an elite defenseman. I think we need to realize that. They're asking Vince Dunn and Adam Larson to do that job. And you know what? They're doing a pretty good impression, like, given who they are and where they're at, they're doing a pretty good impression of like a number one D pair of 2 elite guys. But I think they're just a little step below that. And so that creates some problems. But also, as far as like outscoring their defensive issues, I could see this maybe last season with their team. Maybe you get a goal from the 4th line, in the second period or something that chips in, and all of a sudden, they're able to tie the game 3-3 and you can win it in overtime. Just that little bit of extra scoring. This feels like one of those games where
Yeah,
last season's team would probably be able to outscore their problems.
I know. It's just,
But they're not last season's team. This is a different
right.
team.
Yes, they are a different team. It's just one of those where it's like, how much of this is like, how much of that was ever realistic to just be expecting your 4th line to contribute in that way, right? Like,
No, I mean, it's unsustainable.
I know at some point it's on the guys that you're paying and have produced in the past to continue to produce. And right now, Jared McCann's the only one that is. Like that's
Yeah.
still a problem, right? Like if they were all still playing this bad and you still had the 4th line from last year, you'd have maybe a couple more wins, but you still would be a borderline playoff team, and it would still be the problem of not getting the production from the guys further up on the roster. Like I know we all keep coming back to that 4th line thing, but even last year there was a handful of guys in that upper group that weren't really producing, that the 4th line was covering for. I don't think it's sustainable to be asking the 4th line to always be covering for them.
Yeah, no, it's really not. And I see the comments here at the bottom of chat about like, don't send Maddie down. I agree with that. By the way, I was joking about sending him
Yes.
down. I wasn't serious.
Yes. Let's see. Lindsay, as much as I don't want to, I might need to stop watching the Kraken live for my mental health. The team baffles me with how far they've fallen from last season. So, I mean, I would look, I understand where you're coming from, Lindsay. I would still say, like, we should all keep watching the Kraken. They still deserve our support, all that good stuff. I still enjoy it. I have to watch for all this, but I would watch anyway, just because I'm still a fan. But it is one of those things where I think if we start adjusting our expectations away from where last season's team left them, RJ, I think this all becomes different, right? We're watching these games through a different lens. And I'm just wondering if it's one of those things where if they do lose a bunch on the homestand and they kind of look out of it, I wonder if that's something that does change. Is once we think the season's kind of over, we start looking at it through a different lens, and we start, instead of maybe always noticing the turnovers and that kind of stuff, we start picking up on the good plays or the good things that the younger guys are doing, just because that's, we've changed our thinking. We're already thinking we're out of it.
Yeah, and I was thinking about that a little bit during the game today of just like, what if this season and last season were flipped?
Hmm.
Like, if this was kind of the start, and even if it continues on this way and they kind of finish around where they do in the standings, if this was year two, where I think a lot of people might be okay with the level of progress and you're seeing kind of the bumps along the way. And then, year three is like everything comes together and you kind of take off. I feel like that would make a little bit more sense.
Yeah,
And I feel like people wouldn't, maybe be as down right now, but, unfortunately it kind of turned out the way it did, where it feels like a big step down. I mean, it
yeah.
is. Make no mistake,
Well,
it is
yes, it
too.
is.
Like the expectation at the very least has to be to make the playoffs. Like
Yeah,
that's a fair expectation.
yeah.
And so I don't want to, say that that's, not what we should be expecting, but, I don't know.
No, no, I think you're right. Like it's one of those things to have that expectation, but at some point we can start like turning that page. And then I
Yeah,
think
I
things
gotcha.
actually get easier to as a viewing experience kind of thing, right? Like that's where you can just start having fun with it. It's not like, oh my gosh, we need the 2 points tonight because we need to stay within X amount of points of the Coyotes or whatever, right? Like it becomes just I'm watching this because I just enjoy watching hockey, and that's a very different viewing experience than what we're kind of having to do right now. And I
Yeah.
think that's where some of that joy can come back into it when the team is struggling. On Onslaught, I agree we're a bottom team. No last minute trade is going to fix this. Acknowledge and love the year we had, but it was a one off. Clearly, let's call this team what it is, a building team. And that's where they are at, right? And to your point, RJ, they maybe are doing it a little out of order, but it is still a team that's trying to build their long-term identity, their long-term core of players. We've talked about it many times, right? Guys like Jordan Eberle's contract's up at the end of the year. Wenberg's contract's up at the end of the year. Yanni Gourde's only under contract through next year. Brandon Tanev, same thing. Their core group of guys and their identity for really the next decade and for what should be their long-term competitive window is Matty Beniers, it's Shane Wright, it's Riker Evans, it's Vince Dunn. And not all those pieces are here and not all those pieces are ready yet. This is still a team that's on its way to its final form rather than in it. And I think last year that's again where the expectations skew things a little.
Yeah, and I think more realistically, you could say that this is a team with a 4 to 6 year plan / window, whatever you want to call it, instead of 3 to 5. And year two was just weirdly ahead of schedule, and a lot of things broke their way. Because again, looking at this team on paper, and I've talked about it in the armchair GM chats, like year four, that is the year where you're really able to load up and go for it.
Mhm.
And so I think that's kind of where we're at.
Yeah, we saw, Elliot Friedman pointing out earlier what the cap's going to be next year, RJ. Teams can
Mm-hmm.
start looking at that. Fans, everybody, go hop on Cap Friendly. You could start looking at that. Start working on things yourself too. Yeah, it's going to be an interesting offseason, regardless of how the rest of the season goes. It's going to be an offseason where the Kraken, I think, are going to be pretty busy as they work around things. Um, let's see, Jenna. There's a couple comments in here regarding bringing up Cale Fleury. Jenna's a big fan of that idea. Um, let's see. Bridgman, what about the GM? Feels like the organization should have seen through last season to see that maybe it was a fluke instead of extending Hackstall, signing Dumoulin, Belmar, etc. I don't know. I still like what they did. Like I said, the fourth line was going to be expensive to keep together. They were still only going to get fourth line minutes, and at some point, you can't have the fourth line be the thing you're counting on. Like it's a fourth line for a reason. At some point, you need the higher up guys to step up. I understand, and this is something we talked about, RJ. Right? Like in August, you and I were doing a podcast saying last year you had an exceptionally high shooting percentage. You can't count on that. What can you do to make sure that the team stays that level of competitive, but counting on the fact that you're probably not going to score as many goals as you did, right? And we talked about the power play needs to be better. The PK needs to be better. You make up for it on special teams because they had a lot of room to grow there. This year's team is doing that to an extent. It's just that the rest of it fell off like way more than we were ever imagining. But I think that was the appropriate response, which and that would be the response of the team and the organization too, is you understand that that stuff can't continue, but you look for the other areas in which you can improve and to work around that, kind of knowing it's coming. And I think the Kraken on paper put themselves in a position to do that.
Right. I mean, you look at it now, and the missing production is really coming from guys that were already for sure going to be in place for this season. You're not
Mhm.
moving a Matty Beniers ahead of time thinking there might be a sophomore slump. You're not moving a Bjorkstrand or anything like that. And as far as keeping Hackstall, like, the guy was just a Jack Adams finalist. And the extension didn't have to be done because he had another year left on his contract, but there's no salary cap for coaches. You can pay as many coaches as you can fire and then bring on. It's cheaper to get him extended after last season as opposed to this year if he has another good year. Then he, with his contract up, can go anywhere, can demand anything. You got to get that deal done. And then if need be, you can fire him. But you've got the money from ownership. You don't have to rush into a decision there.
Yep, exactly. Habaka fan to making a trade, bring in Stamkos, some veteran leadership, goal scorer, scores big goals, give Wenny and some draft picks. I mean, I don't know that Tampa would be.
If only Tampa would take that.
Unfortunately, yes. Let's see, Jenna, and I say this lovingly, I really do, but I'd like to see Matty B grab a haircut and a shave and see if that lights a fire under his offense. Is it that simple, RJ? Do we need to go with like the reverse Samson approach for everybody?
Maybe. I don't know. It might make him a little bit lighter out there. I don't know. He does have pretty kind of thick, bushy hair. Maybe that is holding him back. I don't know.
I mean, look,
no sideburns. Get rid of those sideburns.
Yes, that's what'll do it. It is one of those things where I think if you are these players, hockey players tend to be really superstitious. These are the days in which you start looking at any, rituals you have and maybe making some adjustments to them. I think that would make sense and be okay, personally.
I'd love it if they go on a win streak, if they just sweep the homestand and turn things around. I'd love to know and maybe ask around all right, guys, with any superstitions you switched up after the road trip, there's got to be something.
There's got to be something. Yes. Here's something that nobody's brought up, but I wanted to bring it up real quick, RJ, was just how physical the team got in this one. And this is something that, probably did come from Hackstall. And this is something that started more so in the second period, but the team started dishing out a lot of hits through the second half of that second period, and they kept it rolling a little bit into the third as well. Do you think that was just their idea of trying to get back to a simpler form of hockey, simplify the game, build energy and effort level, just bring that up? Because when you are going out there to play physical, those things follow, right? You have to be on it. You have to be going in hard on the forecheck. You got to be back checking if you're going to levy out those hits. Do you think there is something to that?
Yeah, I mean, the hitting helps you get engaged in a game. I mean, that's kind of the big positive of it. You're not going out there trying to hurt anybody on the other team, but it just gets you into a hockey game where, if we're honest, after the first period, a lot of guys weren't really in the game, it felt like. And so maybe that's a response there. And I'm seeing on Twitter here, Jared McCann, he called the first period embarrassing. As an effort, and said some of the veteran guys did speak up in the locker room during intermission. And so maybe that's one of the things that they kind of keyed in on of let's play the body a little bit, boys, let's get into this game. And I think that's a fine way to do it.
Oh, definitely. Definitely. The other thing I find interesting, 12 shots between Adam Larson and Vince Dunn tonight, RJ, of the 33 the Kraken took. Interesting. Maybe offense can come from everywhere, right? That's fine. But that's a lot to be coming from the back end, especially from those two.
I do remember a couple sequences where it felt like back to back. Larson would put one on net, the rebound would pop out, go to Dunn, he'd put one on net. A lot of shots from those two. It felt like their direction was just shoot everything you can at the net.
Definitely. Here's one here from Habak. Looks like Tyson Barrie might be available. Would he be a fit, RJ?
He's not going to fix the defensive issues. I'll tell you that much. I mean, the Kraken already have a couple offensive guys in Vince Dunn, but also Justin Schultz. That would basically be the Justin Schultz replacement guy. And I don't know that he's a whole lot better, as much of an improvement that's worth bringing in. Because I don't know, Dylan, has he gotten better defensively since
No.
We know his reputation, right?
I was going to say, I'm trying to remember. I saw his JFresh card the other day, and it was sub 5% defense. So yeah, no.
Okay, so it stayed that way.
The answer. As Light's pointing out, Tyson Barrie is infamous for his bad defense. It's one of the first things I think of when I see his name, unfortunately. Christian, does the team have a sports psychologist? Maybe they need one. Jen is saying they do have mental health people on staff, but don't recall the specifics. We talked about this a little while ago, RJ. Don't think they have one specifically on staff, but the players do have access to that stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Not that I know of as far as one on staff, but we've heard from Chris Drieger and other guys working with the sports psychologist kind of independently reaching out.
Yeah. And then here's one from Schultz. This is a good question. Has there been a players only meeting yet?
Oh, not that I'm aware of. I mean,
Mhm.
that could be another step as the players getting together, especially as we talked about earlier, how a lot of this falls on the players. Like
Yeah.
Hackstall's pushed all the buttons he can push. At a certain point, the players have to go out there and earn it. And, maybe a players only meeting is what kind of gets the guys going toward that end.
Yeah, and you know what? After a road trip like this, I could see something like that.
Hmm.
I think I could.
And if there was, we wouldn't necessarily know about it.
Yes, agreed, agreed. Let's see, especially if it was to happen on say a road trip, that would be really hard
Yeah.
to cover. Coop Ebbs has been a great Kraken, but like that power play, let's see. Why should a defense respect him and guard low if he constantly can't score by himself 5 yards away from the goal? I'd leave him alone too if I was against us. I mean, there's elements of that, but it's like I said, I would go to player movement and generate that time and space. It's one of those things where it does seem like teams know, and this is pretty much true for all power plays around the league, RJ. You know, you leave one specific guy open, but in the back of your mind that he's open, so you just rush to if the puck starts moving that way, you just rush and get in the shooting lane and block the shot. Like it's not really a danger.
Yeah, and on that play again, I'd love to see just the third forward come in and give him another option because at that point, Eberle's got two options: take the low angle shot because he's at a bad angle, or try and make the pass across, and that's only one passing lane you have to take away, and the one defenseman left there takes it away. You have the extra man on the power play. You can work somebody into the high slot and not be vulnerable at all defensively. It's just the next evolution of that set play I would like to see.
Yes. Pucks and pops. Winter Classic is going to be ugly. Now, here's something, and we haven't talked about it too much. I was going to talk about it tomorrow on the podcast, RJ. For everybody that might be looking at the Kraken's current struggles and worry about the Winter Classic, and look, they are playing Vegas. Vegas is a good team. Historically speaking, for the Kraken going up against the Golden Knights, there's reason to worry. I will say this: it's an outdoor game that throws everything out the window. Outdoor games are
Yep.
slower. I think that benefits the Kraken mightily, right? Vegas is a team that wants to beat you in transition. That's historically how they've beaten us. The outdoor games, ice is softer, might be a little wet, it's a little sloggy, slushy. It slows the game down immensely. These are historically low scoring battles that favors the Kraken in this matchup a lot, I feel like.
I'm with you. If you're going to have to face Vegas, you want it to be outdoors. You want it to be where the conditions aren't quite normal. That's going to help your odds, I think.
Yeah. Bach, Jay Woodcroft, you are a Kraken. Sergio said, please no Woodcroft. We have Bilesma. Again, I just don't think Bilesma wants it. I think he's
Yep.
happy in Coachella Valley, and given the work he's done there, I don't think I would move him from that. He's a good player development guy, and that's the place to do that. This Kraken team isn't really the place for it. Let's see. While having Shane for this game probably won't dramatically change the results, he for sure wouldn't have any effort issues against the Habs, especially from Sam. That's true, RJ.
Yeah, no, and I think having him on the roster in this game, maybe like even in Belmar's place on the fourth line, might have made enough of a difference to get you a spark and potentially get you one extra goal. But as you said earlier in this post game, right? Like, do you really want to bring him into this? I
Yeah,
wouldn't.
no, not yet. Not until until the organization decides to make a shift, right? If you're eliminated and you don't have a chance, then there's going to be a shift in culture, and it won't feel as doom and gloom,
Yeah.
traditionally anyway. Alan, let's focus on your conversation about obtaining a star defenseman. The cap is supposed to increase another 4.2 million, much lower than anticipated. Does the strategy change on who to get in the offseason?
The cap raise is about, like at least through the armchair GMs or whatever, more or less what I'm projecting. But either way, the Kraken are going to have somewhere in the neighborhood of $10 to $11 million to work with. And for that amount of money, you can bring in just about anybody. There's not going to be a defenseman that's going to cost you any more than that you have a chance of acquiring in the NHL. So really, you can bring in any one player you want. I know you, Dylan, think it should be a defenseman. I'm still in the camp of it maybe should be a forward. But like that's what they're going to have to decide is who's the big acquisition.
Well, look, I would be in favor of like a Willie Nylander, like just a pure goal scorer that is very consistent and proven that and can be like a steady offensive presence. I would 100% be on board with that. Otherwise, yeah, I think at some point you might need a defenseman that that again can be a steady, consistent presence on the back end to go alongside an Adam Larson, right? Like Adam Larson has been that for this team, but he's also had his struggles, especially this year. And so I do think that if you were to say invest a majority of that money into one player and you can't get a Willie Nylander, I would look at maybe on the back end. But it's going to be a tough one. That being said, this is where the benefit of having Shane Wright, Riker Evans, younger guys that can come in really help out a lot because they're going to be on cheap rookie deals, right? You've got team control for them for many seasons beyond just the end of that ELC. It's one of those things that does free you up this upcoming offseason to really, for the first time, look at spending $8, $9, $10 million on a player in a way the Kraken have never had the opportunity to do so before. So that's exciting, at least, that's something.
Yeah. And a way that Francis has never done before too. I mean, he'll be navigating new waters.
Yes, definitely. Let's see. So everybody talking about the idea of sending Maddie down. To quote the boys' playoff pressers, we're playing for each other. This group is just showing up and playing. They aren't playing for anything. That's from Jenna. I mean, it's interesting, RJ. That's something, I mean, we can't really speculate on. Only the players would know that. But it's interesting to see conversations like that take place.
Yeah.
Let's see. I know. It's fine. Edward, I'd be in favor of a Team Mario Kart tournament. The way the season is going, they clearly need to switch things up. I would be all for that too. I mean, I think the fans would really appreciate something like that too. If they could do that sometime around the Winter Classic, boy, that would really get everybody fired up. Would love.
I mean, I know they went to, it was like Piper, and I think Root Sports was shooting something at Nintendo headquarters, right?
Yes.
I mean, just have a big one there.
Yeah. You can go back and do that. I got to imagine. It's just froze on me. There we go. Let's see. It's just more everybody back and forth on the whole idea of sending Maddie down. You really started something, RJ.
Sorry, guys. I was not serious about it.
Yes. No, it's fine. Let's see. Jessica, let's see. Not an elite defense number. Adam Larson, not an elite defenseman. Those are fighting words. He's borderline.
See, if Dylan's saying borderline, then we know he's not elite.
That's for me. It's it's unfortunate. I guess in today's NHL too, you could just look at the contracts defensemen sign. That will tell you a lot.
Yeah, there's no elite defenseman being paid $4 million on a non-ELC deal.
No, 5.5 like Jacob Chikrin though. Sorry.
Don't remind me. I know Coop is in here in chat reminding us that that Chikrin really was the one, but they whiffed. Yeah, it was after the conversation about like the one big ad.
Yeah. Pucks and Pops bringing up, even McCann said they aren't going to surprise teams this season. Teams are going to be ready for them. That's still, I think, one of the things to come back around to. That's something the team talked about on this road trip to the national media, RJ. And so that's one where the time to change that would be having a little bit more off time as the schedule eases up for the Kraken, but also where you can really focus on things at home, having a significant amount of time at KCI on non-game days where you can really go over tape. You can go out there on the ice. You can practice through things. It's why, again, this homestand feels like the most important moment of the season, RJ. It's just what's going to happen this next 2 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, it really is. It'll be interesting to see how much they choose to practice during that time because it's a really packed schedule too. I mean, they're playing more than every other day on that homestand. So not a whole lot of practices you can really throw in there, but I think they might just try and take advantage of being at home at KCI, maybe even just run a couple short practices, maybe even after the back-to-backs, just have a skate something. But it'll be interesting. I think they might go away from their normal practice schedule where normally I wouldn't expect them to practice like hardly at all in this homestand, but I think we'll see something different.
Yeah, I think so too. DDB, my weird and stupid fan theory is that Hack's hockey system is very counterable, which would explain the sudden fall off, even though the roster is largely the same. I mean, that's basically what the team was talking about. That's what we were just talking about. And, right? McCann talked about that. Players talked about that to Elliot Friedman. Hackstall himself talked about that teams were adjusting, and then it was on the Kraken to kind of make that next adjustment on their end as well. So it's not a stupid theory. is I guess what I'm saying.
Yep.
You are onto something potentially. Absurdly Sane with the super chat here. Thank you very much. Reminder to like the stream even when we don't like the game result. It's a small price to pay for therapy. That's right. Appreciate the kind words there. Appreciate the super chat. They're Absurdly Sane a lot. It does mean a lot. All right, I'm just going to jump down to the bottom of chat here for the last 5 minutes or so. So, if, there's tons of comments. If you really want something read, consider this your what's it called? The bar is going to close. Last call.
Oh,
There
last
we go.
call. Yeah.
There we go. Consider this the last call. I'm gonna start going down there. Habak solution: build Grew a horse barn in his backyard. Go on a 2019 Blues Cup run and just out goalie the other teams. Have not heard that yet, RJ. It's a fantastic idea. And you know
Love it.
what? Have the team come together and build it themselves, right? Talk about
Team building.
Team building exercise. That's what you do.
Team building. Perfect. Yeah, and with a much more likable goalie than 2019.
Yes, I would agree with that. Jeez.
It's pretty much the opposite temperament wise.
Yes. Coop, more conversations about Shane going on down here. Coop, I think if the fans in the front office can be patient enough to let Shane fully finish cooking in the AHL, we'll all be so much better off. He's building so much momentum. You don't want to rush it. I think we're both on board with that. RJ
Yep.
Ryan, thank you so much for the super sticker. Really appreciate that. Light, I'm just saying Shane was, not given a chance. He's been set up to succeed in Coachella Valley and is benefiting from it. Agreed. There we go. B grew with horses in his backyard, would be the first Kraken goalie to crack a 905 season save percentage. It's entirely possible.
I think we can all get on board with this idea.
Yeah, I think so. Let's see. Ricky saying with Shane, he's got to learn at the NHL level, get on with it. Hey, in the 3 games he was up here, from an analytics perspective, best Kraken forward this season, RJ.
Yeah, that line was driving possession, that fourth line with him and Winterton. I think it bode really well for the two of them, but I still agree with Coop. You got to let him finish cooking. I mean, certainly you talk about let him cook. I mean, he's doing great in the AHL. He is lighting it up down there. I want to see a little bit more of that.
Yes, I would. And like I said, you don't do that until the writing's really on the wall and things are in that place. But otherwise, I'm in favor of, yes, late in the season, bringing him up, getting him some reps at the NHL level. Don't worry about burning the year of the ELC, any of that stuff. You get him in games, you get him used to the NHL so he can really hit the ground running next year. I'm on board with that. Peter, the team needs to learn next man up mentality with our top scorers not producing or being injured. I would agree with that, especially on the special teams, RJ, because again, power play just does not look the same without Schwartzy in there, and that's a problem they got to figure out.
Right, and with that also, like you get other guys having opportunities too, like Yanni Gord's not usually on the power play. He is all the time. Like, take advantage of that. Show that you deserve to stick there.
Exactly. Zoe, I'm now pondering a Dunn-Borgen pairing. I feel like that would not work.
It's in the category of it's so crazy it just might work, I think.
You know what? Look, it would be a fantastic pairing at feeding the transition going up the ice. When they weren't in a position to do that, things would be rough, though. That's what I would say. Yeah. Let's see. Let's see. Dunn and Borgen have the same shot. You'd not pair them together from Light. My concern would be more so on the back end. Otherwise, I think, Borgen plays in the offensive zone similar to Larson, RJ. Right? Like, I think Vince Dunn would be able to set up Borgen on some of those activated situations just because Larson does a lot of those same things.
Yeah, in the offensive zone, I love it. I think they work really well together as a pair in that part of the ice. It's just the D zone where there might be issues.
Yep. DDB with the super chat here. Really appreciate that. Thanks for the stream, guys. Better days are ahead, definitely. Let's go Kraken. Let's go Tips. Silver Tips fan. Oh my goodness.
I mean, hey, they're pretty hot to start the season.
They are. Not quite as hot as the Portland Winterhawks, but just saying.
Oh, come on, Dylan.
Come on. Why? I have to. I'm like legally obligated forever. Yes, but no, seriously, appreciate the super chat, and it is. Better days are ahead, whether it's this season or future seasons, whether it's watching Shane Wright down at the Coachella Valley level, right? Like there's always good stuff going on. That is one of the benefits of this organization, is even if the NHL club, RJ, isn't quite playing at the highest levels, they got tons and tons of great prospects that are all playing really well, and certainly the Firebirds always seem to play well, so that's good stuff.
If you ever feel like the future is not bright, go watch a Firebirds game.
Definitely. Definitely. Alan, last question for me. Hack hasn't changed so far in his playbook. What are both of your feelings that he scraps the old and tries something brand new, not just shaking up the lines? I think you're gonna start seeing that. And he has to an extent, right? Like I pointed it out back when they went on that little win streak. I pointed it out tonight about them going back to attacking in the low slot, really bunching up and trying to get high percentage chances in and around the crease. That has never been the Hackstall Kraken like strategy or MO. And so I think we are seeing Hackstall start to do some of those things.
Yeah, and also like shifting to the volume shooting mentality. Like sometimes overload almost like how many shots they're putting on net. But that's something certainly that he's addressed to kind of change the mentality of the team after they weren't scoring enough, the shoot the bleep and puck kind of thing. But any kind of larger systems also just do take time to implement, and it's really hard to do that on the road.
That is true. Light, I do wonder how Dunn and Alexiak would look. Playing the
I
same, it's yeah,
Both lefties.
yeah.
I don't
It,
love it.
yeah. You know what though? That would be a very physical group. That would be a very physical bunch right there.
Yeah. You couldn't
Like
mess with either of them. Like down, you'd get punished. Probably more so from Dunn, weirdly enough.
I feel that, right? I feel like he would definitely use that as an opportunity. Rob C, where's the dog, Dylan? Always good for therapy. She is here. Here she is.
Oh,
Here's
there she
Afra.
is.
I think Afra deserves a treat. You do. You were very good spending time with me through that Kraken game. Yes, you were, as always. The goodest girl.
Oh, that's a big
That's
treat.
a big frosted treat right there. Yeah, that was
Wow.
really big coming out. There you go. Enjoy that for all of us. Afra, that was a big cookie. Let's see. Bach, put Joey on the power play.
Hey, he works on those one-timers at the end of warm-ups every time. Did you see that when you were at home, Dylan?
No, I didn't. Oh, that
Yeah,
must be
no, he'll
fun.
get fed one-timers at the end of warm-ups. He's like one of the last two guys on the ice, and he'll have like usually McCann or someone just feed him one-timers that he'll take from the dot. So he works on it.
Yeah, no, that does sound great. Light with the super chat. I'll super chat to echo the sentiment. The Firebirds are super fun to watch. It's why I'd kind of love to see Dan coach up here. Lol. Look, from a media side of things, RJ, and I know you'd be on
We'd
board with
all
this.
love it.
Love to have Dan Bilesville up there as a coach. Like he's just so much fun to talk to, and just I mean, he's so nice. He's just a wonderful human being, everybody. Like on top of being a good hockey coach, all that stuff. Dan Bilesville is just one of the best human beings I've ever met. It's awesome. Nicole, all forward power play.
I mean, why not? Like other teams have run with it sometimes. Like I think it could be worth trying potentially. The
Yeah,
analytics tell you should do it. Allison would love it.
that's true. That is very true. Coop going with the opposite direction of with Joey there. Chain Joey to the goalpost so he can't leave the crease. Lol. They got to pull a Goldberg, RJ.
Oh no.
Just keep him in the net. Let's see. DDB Dylan, we cooked the Hawks with 6 unanswered goals our last homestand. Seriously, though, they're good. Yeah, you could bring that up. You gave a super chat, I'll allow it. So those are the rules. Does not making any moves during the season leave too much to do in the off season? From Bridgeman, RJ.
No, I think you have a lot of flexibility in the offseason, regardless of what you do. Look, if the Kraken really do bottom out and it's clear they're not going to make the playoffs by the deadline, yeah, you've got to trade away some of the pending UFAs. That's just what you have to do to get some assets back if they're not going to help you this year. But other than that, everything they need to do can wait till the offseason.
Definitely. And Robert, that Alex Petrangelo of the Golden Knights is pretty good. Is he available?
No.
Unfortunately.
Not until the contract becomes an albatross, and then you don't want it.
Exactly. That's how the Vegas Golden Knights work. All right, everybody. I think that's going to do it for us for tonight. Thank you all so much for joining us. Thanks for making this a good experience, even after another disappointing result at the end of this road trip. Just really appreciate all of you, all the super chats, all the love. It really, really does mean a lot.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. I mean, it's amazing to see over 100 people in here. After a 5-game losing streak, a game like that, it just, it really makes my day. Absolutely, and makes me really happy going into my beer league game that I'm going to leave for soon at KCI.
how do you guys do this? How do you play games this late? I guess it's not too late.
This is an early game, Dylan. It's a 9 o'clock start. This is an early one.
That's a very early game. This is why I don't play beer league, everybody. I'm a morning person. I can't do that stuff. That's okay though. I've got my own work cut out for me because I'm assuming there's gonna be lots of sprinkles and crumbs. I'm gonna have to dig out of my bed here before I'm gonna be able to go to sleep as after work's on this treat. Thanks so much for joining us, everybody. Deep dive tomorrow. Looking forward to that. And then of course, one last shout out to Flatstick Pub for sponsoring us. Again, one last look at the record leaderboard there, everybody. You think over the 9 holes?
I bet someone in chat can beat that.
I think people can beat that. Yes, you can go beat King Sizzle and Matty Ice. Looks like are the people there to challenge. So everybody go check out that Flatstick Pub location, South Lake Union location. Lots of fun stuff. I'll keep showing off pictures as we go, and we'll see you all next time.